In this video, we're gonna go through how you create a vlog from start to finish. This is a special video that I'm putting together for you because I'm taking you through the entire process rather than just giving you some tips and tricks. We're gonna go from idea creation to planning to the gear, how I shot, and then we're gonna get into the edit and I'll show you step by step how I develop my edits so that the footage turns into a story that's entertaining to watch. Now recently I started a second channel that's all gonna be story-driven content. None of this tutorial stuff that you see here. And I think that's a great way for me to show a different side of what I create. And those videos are a great example of the different concepts that I teach here on my channel. So the video that we're gonna go through is a vlog that I shot recently about my trip up to Butler Peak, which is a fire lookout way out in the mountains. Now it's not the best vlog that I've ever shot, but that's not what matters. It's a video that really uses storytelling techniques to help drive the video. Now, one of the big pitfalls when it comes to creating YouTube content is this idea of get over the fear and just hit record, which is great. But the issue is if you don't have a plan in place and you don't have an idea of where your video is gonna go, then a lot of times your video is gonna fall flat and no one's gonna watch your video. I see this all the time in my comments, especially in my original how to vlog video. What I see a lot of the times are people saying like, you know, I've been doing this for 2 years and I've gotten no views, or they're on the other side of the fence where they just started their vlog and they're like, all right, great, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go start shooting. Now having motivation and being able to get over your fear and just hitting record and just going for it is a great way to approach YouTube. But unless you've sat down and really thought through your videos, a lot of times just hitting record and recording everything and then trying to edit it into a video doesn't work. You'll keep hearing this again and again. The more you watch like YouTube education and filmmaking tutorials, you'll hear people say story matters most. Well, that's great, but you need to understand how to craft a story. So in this video, storytelling is gonna be one aspect that we're gonna cover, and I'm gonna show you how I created a simple story out of a vlog. Because if you can tie story into the vlogs that you're creating, it's gonna become more engaging for your audience. If you have a setup, you have a history, you have a journey, and then there is a climax with a resolution, when you put all those pieces into a YouTube video, your audience is going to be more sucked into the video, and then they're gonna wanna watch another one of your videos. This is why some creators do so well. You don't think about the storytelling elements because it's just super engaging and you wanna keep watching. But if you take a step back and you look at these big creators, you'll notice that these same storytelling elements go across every video on their channels. You look at someone like Casey Neistat, or you look at Yes Theory. They are using storytelling elements to craft their videos. And if you take a step back and look at every one of their videos, you can look at the structure and understand that, oh, that's their hook, or that's their setup, or that's the build up to the climax, and that's the resolution. Like these components, they seem very easy, especially if someone's just saying, here's storytelling A, B, C, D. It seems easy to do, but to put that in practice is actually much harder. And it's a skill that you have to learn. It's something you have to practice over and over and over. And part of the reason I started my second channel is to have a place where I can create more story-driven content and not just do tutorials. Like these are great. I love helping you guys. I love creating tutorials. But I originally got into filmmaking and creating YouTube videos because I wanted to just create and tell stories. Now, if you're always teaching and you're never telling stories, then you start to lose that skill of telling stories. And before I got into YouTube, I was a documentary filmmaker. I did a lot of reality TV. And so there was a lot of story that I was working. I'd work with producers and we'd be trying to craft the story as we're dealing with real situations. And that's essentially what you're doing. And you need to craft a story around these different elements that you're filming so that they're engaging for a viewer to watch, and there's something that someone's gonna stick around, hit subscribe, hit like, watch your entire video, and watch more videos. Because that's what's most important on YouTube. If you can master that element, get people to watch longer, watch more videos, then you'll find success. And all of us are on here on YouTube because we want to grow a following and we want to build this into a sustainable business that is something that we can do full time and be able to keep creating and enjoy creating, because creating is fun. And once you've learned your skills and you know where you're going with your channel, being able to create and make money from it, it's an awesome career. And there's also a lot of really positive things that you can do with video. You can really tell some stories that will make an impact in the world. And there's just so many different ways that you can approach YouTube so that you can make an impact. So I know that was a huge, long intro, but in this video, what we're gonna go into is how you vlog from start to finish, and we're gonna go through every step of the process. You're gonna come alongside me and we're gonna make a vlog together. All right, guys, let's get into it. Step one of the process is the idea phase. Now, before we get into the idea phase, I just wanna ask you guys, this is around story-driven vlog content. If you're interested in seeing a breakdown like this for, say, a tutorial or a review, I would love to hear from you guys, so go down in the comments and just tell me what style of videos you'd like to see an entire breakdown of. Let's get into the idea phase. So before you even go out and start shooting, you really need to come up with the concept of what it is that you're going to go shoot. When I started the process of wanting to create this Butler Peak vlog, I didn't just pick up my camera and go out to this trail and start shooting. If I started in that way, I would have no idea where this video was gonna go. And I think that's key. Obviously, there is that element of surprise when you're creating content, but you wanna have a trajectory. You wanna have a goal of what you're planning to do in your video. And when I first started this channel, if you go way back in the history, like 500 videos ago, I did a lot of vlogs, and a lot of times I would hit record and just start shooting and then just see where it goes and then cut all that together. And those videos weren't that entertaining. I mean, yeah, if you want to come along for the journey and you just want to like see my day, like that, some people watched it, a lot of my family, my grandma loves those, but like, that's not going to build you a bigger audience. You want to approach your video with a goal in mind. So when I started coming up with concepts for my second channel, my goal with that channel is to tell stories from adventures. That's kind of where I'm positioning that channel. Obviously, it's a new channel, I'm just playing around, but this video specifically, I wanted to find somewhere that I could hike to that would be unique and have this ending, like have something at the end that makes it worth the journey. Like I didn't want to just go down a random hiking trail and then get to the end and be like, great, we finished the hiking trail. That was fun. I enjoyed a hike. That's not an interesting story for a viewer. There has to be an obstacle. There has to be not only obstacles, but there has to be somewhere that we're going. So I started doing research just online. I started looking up the area that I was gonna go shoot this video in, which is Big Bear. So I started typing in, Big Bear hiking spots. Now from there, I started just reading a ton of blogs, looking for different and unique places that might be interesting to film. Obviously, when you start typing in things like Big Bear hiking, you're gonna find a ton of trails and there's gonna be a lot of different places to go. So as I started doing this research, there's a few things that started popping up. And I saw this Butler Peak lookout pop up. I was like, that looks like a great spot. I went on YouTube, I started doing some research and I found videos of people, driving their Jeep up to the Butler Peak. Well, right there, I'm like, well, that's not that interesting because if that's super easily accessible, that might not be a video that I wanna go after. These were all older videos that I was seeing, and then I noticed that there was an article recently that showed that the road had been closed because of winter damage. All right, that becomes more of an interesting story. I have this goal to get to. It's this longest trail. It's all uphill, so there's some challenge there, and the road's washed out. So this might be an interesting story to go after because there are some things in place that make it so that I can tell a story about the journey from beginning to end. Now, this is where research is super important. I spent a couple hours just reading articles and blogs about this hike, trying to figure out best routes, what to expect, and also just current conditions and the history behind the Butler Peak Fire Lookout. Because all of that is gonna come into play when you're actually shooting the vlog. Now you might think that's crazy. You're spending all this time just coming up with an idea, but that's important when it comes to creating videos that people actually wanna watch. You need to spend time on the idea and creation phase. And you might waste half a day trying to find a good story to tell, but once you can find a good story to tell, something that people might be interested in, it's gonna set you apart from the people who are just hitting record and shooting their day. Like that's the biggest thing here. We're trying to create interest. We're trying to create stories that people will want to watch, and then they'll want to watch more videos from. Now, step 2 in the process of creating a vlog is planning. Now, I did a whole video around script writing and outlining process, and I'll link to that in the description. But let's go through my process for this video specifically. So let's go over to the whiteboard real quick, and let me just walk you through a basic story structure. So a story is made up of a series of events. The first thing is your hook, and we're talking specifically YouTube here because We want to get people interested in your video and then stay to the end and then watch another video. So you want to start with a hook. First 10 to 15 seconds. This is something exciting that you either pull from what happens in the vlog, or it's something that you plan out so that it gets people hooked into your video. So for my video, I use this opening drone shot, which gives people an idea of what's coming in the climax of this video. So your first act is basically setting up what's gonna happen in this vlog. So in this first act, you wanna set up your problem or your conflict, and you also wanna give some backstory. And this is basically what happens before you start your journey. So for my video, I set up that I'm trying to get to the peak of this mountain at this fire lookout. And I also set up in this first act some history behind the fire lookout and just fire lookouts in general. Now in storytelling, there's what's called an inciting incident, and this is what sends the character on the journey. So if there's something specific that sends you on the journey of this vlog, this is where you add it in. Now the second act of your story is your journey. And this is where you have a series of events that either take you closer to your objective or different challenges that you face along the journey. So the idea is that you have different obstacles in your way. So this is all the exciting part of the vlog. This is the meat of the vlog. This is you doing the thing that you set out to do. So for me, in the context of this video, it's the challenge of the mountain. It's the challenge of being in the direct sunlight, the conflict that comes with a road that's washed out, like all these different elements that help drive the story forward, but also make it harder for me to get to my goal. Now your third act is going to be your climax and your resolution. That's where your story reaches the crucial moment. You finally get to the place, or the thing finally happens that you set out to do. So for this, it's that moment when I get up to the fire hut and I'm almost there. That is the climax, that's the peak, and then the resolution is what happens once I actually reach that moment. So a basic diagram of how your story should be structured for a vlog is you have your hook, you grab your audience attention, you have your opening exposition, your history, your conflict. That's your first act. Then you have your second act, which is all the obstacles and different things that come along on the journey. You have your climax, which is the peak. You finally get to that thing that you're set out to do at the very beginning. And then you have your resolution, you tie everything up. And then for YouTube, you add this last little bit that gets people to go watch another video. So you try to give your viewers something at the end that makes them watch the next video in your series or the next video on your channel. Okay, so the challenge or the conflict of this story is, will I get to the summit and what will I find at the summit? That is what I set up right at the beginning of the video. It gives you that starting point of where this video is going and why you should be interested and engaged. So beyond just setting up this conflict, I also need to set up the history. So a little bit of information about the Butler Peak specifically, and also just fire lookouts in general. That gives you, the viewer, the context of what my goal is and some history behind the trail and just fire lookouts in general. Now from that point to the climax, you gotta build story beats. One of the story beats that I was thinking through was the journey from my house to the trailhead. That's gonna be one story beat. And then the trail itself needs to be a story beat, different conflicts that I may encounter. And this is kind of loose because when you're creating a vlog, it's kind of like documentary or reality in a way where you're not gonna plan out every little thing. Now, some people might have more structured vlogs where yes, you can plan out every aspect of your video. In terms of doing a video where it's more reality based, where you're experiencing something, you're gonna have these rough outlines of things that you wanna capture. And as you shoot the video, it's going to evolve and change. That's just the nature of creating reality style content. So the next story beat is the journey up. So actually mountain biking up the path. And I changed it from hiking to mountain biking after doing my research. Originally, I was gonna hike this trail, but I thought it was gonna be more interesting to mountain bike it. Personally, I just wanted to mountain bike it anyways. And it also saves me time because I'm gonna be shooting a lot while I'm up there. And on a mountain bike, it's a little bit quicker, especially on the way down. So the next story beat that I wanna cover is actually approaching the fire lookout. And the climax of the story is when I get to the fire lookout, and then the resolution is actually finally getting to the top and finding what's there. So this is my plan. And what I did was I put it in my phone. I just have it in my notepad. That's what I use to create all my videos. And I wrote down these different story beats just so I was reminded of what I'm doing. I also wrote down any notes about the trail itself, anything that I want to remember to talk about so that I have it all in one place. Now, when it comes to your creation process, you got to find a system that works for you. For me, on my iPhone, the notepad, It's the easiest way for me to create videos and just keep writing notes and add things, because on your notepad you can not only create notes, but you can drop in photos, you can drop in different elements that you find, so that when you're actually planning and scripting and coming up with the process, you can put everything in one place. I've found for me that if I start trying to use different apps and different pieces of software to do all of this planning, that I end up getting lost in all of it and I don't use any of it. So my notepad and my whiteboard right here are my two best friends when it comes to planning and creating videos. So now that I have a plan, I just need to pick a day that I'm gonna go do this, give myself the day to actually shoot and the freedom to actually shoot and not be rushed, and go shoot it. That's the next process. Now, we're gonna get into gear next. I just wanna talk about this element of time, because I have a 5-month-old. She's upstairs sleeping right now. I'm shooting this video at 6 a.m., trying to get stuff done before she wakes up and wants to go play. And that you gotta remember that life is more than just YouTube. Like, there is more than just one priority of making videos. Some of us, if you are single and this is all you're doing right now, take advantage of the fact that you can put more time into creating videos. The more time that you can dedicate to the process, the faster you're gonna grow and the more you're gonna find success. Now, if you have a job, if you have family, you're just gonna have to set aside time to make this happen. And this is also why planning, scripting is gonna be even more important, because if you're shooting videos that people aren't gonna wanna watch, you're just spinning your wheels and wasting your time. Whereas if you spend time and really focus in the content that you're producing, then the one day that you have to shoot your video, you know that you're gonna shoot a video that people are actually interested and that they wanna watch. And you won't go 5 years down the road without any growth on your channel, because you know that you're setting yourself up for success. So for me, I chose a day where I could go up to Big Bear, shoot this video. My parents have a cabin up there, so I was gonna go for the entire day and spend the night. That gives me the flexibility to go create and not having the pressure of time of me needing to drive back home, rush back to do things. Part of the process of creating YouTube videos and creating vlogs is setting yourself up so that you can actually do the whole process. So if you need to wake up early before your job or before kids are up, then do that so that you can do the idea creation phase. If you need to set aside a day to go shoot, do that, because the more that you think through the process and you actually give yourself the proper time you need to make a video, the easier it's gonna be for you and the more creative you can be. And that's the key. We are in a creative endeavor. We are here to shoot videos that people are gonna wanna watch, and you wanna be creative, which is the fun aspect of creating videos. Now let's get into the next step of the process for me, which is grabbing the gear that I need to film. So for this vlog specifically, I used a bunch of different pieces of gear. However, you need to just pick your camera system and what lenses you're gonna bring. If you're just using your phone, just use your phone. Sometimes that's the best tool that you have, is the phone in your pocket. And in this video, you'll see that I actually shot a bunch of segments using my phone because I was riding my bike and I just wanted to get something quick. Could have used a GoPro, but I forgot a GoPro. But the gear that I brought along was my camera. I brought along a couple prime lenses because I wanted to get super shallow depth of field. I wanted to get that cinematic look. I brought along a drone. I brought along a point and shoot, the Sony ZV-1. It's kind of overkill because I was using my phone too, but the Sony ZV-1 is what I used at the beginning of the video, and I ended up leaving it in the car because I didn't want to actually bring it on the trail. But it was a good camera to grab some quick bits with. I brought ND filters for my lenses because, again, I'm trying to get that cinematic look, and some of the tools that I use for my gear is ND filters, prime lenses. I brought along a gimbal because I knew I wanted to get super smooth shots. I didn't want to shoot everything handheld. I brought enough batteries and cards to last me the day. And then I brought my computer because at night I wanted to review the footage and make sure there wasn't anything that I needed to reshoot. And that's something that might come up when you're actually producing your content. You might need to reshoot little elements. That's not a bad thing, but as you're crafting your story and when you're looking at your footage, if you're in a situation where you can go out and reshoot something, maybe you need to get a reaction from yourself or you need to set something up a little bit better, go out and do that, even if you're not in the exact same location. So for example, if you were doing something in like a city environment and you forgot to set up a scene properly, then you could go find like an alleyway or a wall, something that might look like it was in that scene, and go reshoot that setup and then tie it in and it will look seamless. You just need to find something that has a similar background to where you were shooting the original video. So because I was going to Big Bear, which is a mountain town, it's a few hours away from where I live, I needed to bring my computer so I could sit down, go through all the footage and kind of look at it, before I drove back home. And the backpack that I use for all my gear is my Shimoda X50 that holds all this gear, plus my mountain biking gear, some water, a ton of food. Like, you got to take care of yourself while you're out shooting. And that's one reason why I personally use a Shimoda bag. It's because it allows me to put a big water bottle on the side. One thing that, a lot of people don't talk about is the things that you need outside the camera gear. So when you're developing your kit of what you want to bring with you for your vlogs, you got to think through like yourself. Like, what else do you need? Food, water, maybe rain gear, hats. Like, there's different things that you would bring with you to do your adventures or whatever it is that you're shooting. And you have to make sure you bring that on top of your camera gear, because you don't want to get stuck in a situation where you don't have enough water. On this trip, I brought 2 massive things of water, and it really weighed me down. And weight is also something you're gonna have to take into consideration. My backpack was heavy with all this gear. And sometimes I don't bring all of this. This video specifically, I knew I had more time to be able to shoot this, and I took a lot of breaks on the way up just because I was carrying a backpack that weighed a ton. So you have to think through realistically, what can you bring with you? When I'm doing more of an expedition, so last year I went to Ecuador and climbed some of the tallest peaks down there. I brought very little gear for that and focused mainly on lightweight gear because I needed more gear to protect me from the elements when I'm at like 19,000 feet. That's insane. And now that I have a second channel, I can revisit all that footage because I never actually produced anything from those videos. And I think that's topic for another video on this channel. And that is what happens when you don't have a story. Because I shot 2 weeks of footage and I didn't go through this planning and idea stage, and I ended up with a bunch of footage that doesn't tie together. So now I have to come up with a way to put all this footage together and make a story out of it. And that's something I'm trying to help you guys avoid with this video, because personally I've done this. I've shot multiple weeks of footage. I've gone out with like this epic situation and ended up falling flat because I didn't get the key elements that I needed to tell my story. So I really want you guys to think through process. I want you to think through actually the idea and preparation stage, because that's gonna help you find success. And the more that you do this, the more that you plan out videos and create your story structure, the easier it's gonna get and it'll become natural. At first, it might seem like a lot of work, but after you do a few videos, you'll start getting in a rhythm and you'll be like, yep, I need a conflict, I need a resolution, I need something that I'm going towards. What is that? Boom, 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 figure it out. And you won't necessarily need to spend so much time on the research phase because you'll instinctively be able to set up these story elements that's gonna help you craft a better vlog. All right, so let's get into shooting the video. Now, this is where a lot of people start. So you could see how much preparation there goes into before you even hit record. Whenever you're shooting a vlog, you really want to shoot more than you're actually gonna use. So one of the key things that I always suggest is to set up everything that you do and do it on camera. Because you may or may not use that as part of your video, but having all those elements when it gets into the editing is gonna help you actually craft your story. So when I woke up that morning to shoot this video, 6 a.m., I needed to get my gear together, so I turned on a camera and shot just a few things as I was setting up my gear. Okay, so the goal today is to go up to Big Bear, which there's this fire lookout. It's like up on top of a mountain. It overlooks all of Big Bear. And it's just this really cool structure. Now, I also grabbed a bunch of B-roll, and B-roll is the footage that's gonna help tie your video together. And you can use B-roll in so many different ways, whether it's on top of when you're talking or use it for transitions with a little bit of music, or add a voiceover, add some B-roll, some music. Like, you can tie B-roll in so many different ways. And one of the things you wanna do is get coverage. You wanna overshoot when it comes to B-roll. I'm always shocked because I shoot so much footage, and then when I get to the editing phase, I use almost every single shot. Because the more coverage that you get, the more flexibility you have to craft your story, and you can do things like quicker cuts to just like get little hits of things. And when I shot this, I didn't know if I was gonna use this. I didn't know if I was gonna start, at the trailhead versus at home, but it's good to grab these different elements. Now, as I drove to Big Bear, I grabbed a bunch of footage of the drive, whether it was out the side window, the front window, perspective of my hand, and I did this throughout the drive. It was a 2.5-hour drive to get to Big Bear, and as the light changed in different ways in the different roads that I went on, I just grabbed some B-roll shots, and I shot all this using the ZV-1. Now, when the road changed and there was no one on the road, that's when I was like, okay, this is a key element that I'm gonna probably use. And so this shot right here, I shot a super long shot of this road because I thought, potentially this could be used as a time lapse if I wanted to add that element into it. So one thing you should be thinking about is time change in your videos? Are there parts where you're gonna need to show a time shift, like you need to show time moving forward? And time lapses are a great way to do that. So transition scenes can be as quick as just a simple time lapse. You know, you watch a lot of Casey Neistat videos, he always put his camera down and did a quick time lapse because it's just a quick transition that shows the passage of time. Now there's a whole section when I met up with my parents, went to their house, and I didn't film any of that because I didn't really think it was relevant to the story. The next beat that I wanted to capture, because I was looking at my plan, was the trailhead. And so as I was approaching the trailhead, I was on a dirt road, I pulled out the camera and I started shooting just me talking to camera again, setting up what's coming, what to expect, what my challenges are. You need to think through everything that's coming and talk about those elements. And you want to try to do this in a way where you're not always repeating the same information over and over. So when I was at home, I said one bit of information. Now, I don't want to say that same exact thing when I'm in the car. You could repeat some stuff, and there are times where, yes, I would suggest doing the same kind of information over and over, but you're only going to use one in the edit because you want to keep the story moving forward. So you always want to be thinking, what did I say last? And what do I need to say next that's going to help keep moving this story forward, getting me towards my goal? And also, what are some interesting things that are happening right now that makes this moment unique and why I'm capturing it? So this was a great opportunity to talk about the trail because I'm about to get to the trail. So some of the key things that I found in my research was that the road got washed out, that you have to park your car at the bottom and you have to hike, the 5-6 miles to get to the summit. Any information that came up in research, this was a great opportunity to talk about what to expect. So originally you could 4-wheel all the way to Butler Peak and you could park down below it and be able to walk up to this fire hut. And because the road got washed out a few years ago, they've shut it down. So basically you have to park at the bottom and then get yourself up. It's about a 10 to 12 mile hike. And I don't really know what to expect from this trail. So as you're getting into a situation in your vlog, you can always set it up by putting out there what you're expecting and maybe what you're scared of or what you're worried about or what you're excited for. What are some emotions that you're feeling right now before you go into that situation? Okay, so now that I'm at the trail, this is the fun part. This is kind of the whole purpose of creating vlogs, is taking someone on a journey. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was gonna encounter. So as I started doing the trail, I started shooting different elements that were of interest to me. So when you're in a situation like this where you don't know what to expect and it's all new, just keep an eye out for things that might be interesting that help tell your story. This video is about getting to the fire lookout. So I needed to find elements as I'm going up this trail that talk about, the trail itself, the conditions, maybe what I'm feeling, maybe what I'm worried about, if I got lost, if I'm not sure of things. Is there any conflict that's coming up as I'm going along on this journey? That's the elements that I want to capture because those are the elements that are interesting. And also because I'm doing a mountain biking video, I want to talk about, the trail. So part of what you want to do when you're creating a story-driven vlog is think through your audience. So who is your audience? What would they actually care about? So for this style of video, I was catering it towards people who are interested in outdoor style content. So what are those audience members interested in? They're going to be interested in conditions of the trail, what I was feeling, like things that were going on at that moment. They're not interested in the cameras that I'm using. They're not interested in the drone and, using my drone. So I'm not gonna shoot video of me playing around with my drone and, almost crashing my drone. Like my audience here on this channel cares about making YouTube videos, but my audience that I was catering this towards was not necessarily people who are interested in the creation process. It was more people who want to watch an adventure film or people who are interested in mountain biking on this trail. Kind of serves two purposes here, because somebody who might be interested in this trail will watch this video to get an experience of it because they might want to go do it. And also someone who's just interested in watching adventure style vlogs would be interested in watching this because it's a vlog about an adventure. So I'm not gonna stop and talk about my camera and my gimbal and different things that I was working with because they have no place in this story. So you gotta really think through of who your audience is and avoid creating content that your audience wouldn't be interested in. So some of the things that I encountered on this trail was, the sun super hot beating down on me. I encountered a lot of areas where it was washed out. The hill itself was steep and it was a long trek all the way to the top. So those are all conflicts that I wanted to capture and talk about. Now, beyond just me talking to camera, which I did just using my iPhone, I had it point like this, filming myself as I was writing. It's It's more interesting because it's in the process. So beyond that, I shot a ton of B-roll. So I would stop at different sections along the trail and shoot different batches of B-roll. So first I stopped. I just wanted to get the forest that I was going through. So I really focused on just the elements of nature. So getting some of these gimbal shots. Then the next time I stopped was at a washout. So I got a few different elements here. I got gimbal shots of the washout. I put the camera on a tripod. I shot myself walking through the scene. And then I got some detail elements of my bike. Now this is key. You want to shoot a variety of content. You don't want to just shoot the same thing over and over. With your B-roll, you want to be getting a ton of coverage. So you want to be getting different angles. You want to be getting different shot sizes. You want to be able to get reactions as well as POV of what you're doing. So if you haven't seen my video on how to shoot better B-roll, I go through this idea of shooting B-roll. And that's a great follow-up video to this because it talks through this idea of just shooting variety in more detail. So I'll put a link to that down below in the description. More homework for you to watch after this one. So it did take me a while to get up the trail because I was stopping and shooting and getting all these different elements as I was going along. Now, when I got to the fire lookout, I turned this corner and boom, it was right there and I could see it and I was close. And I knew at that point I needed to stop and shoot a scene here because the approach to the fire lookout is a key element to help tell the story. That's gonna be a build-up moment because you'll see this is the shot that I wanted to build up to. I got this drone shot of the fire lookout. It's an epic shot. If I turn the corner and said, hey, there's the fire lookout, and then I show the shot, there's no build-up, there's no anticipation. The climax and the final moment, the reason that we all came up on this journey together. So I wanted to build this up. So here, I actually spent some time and thought through, how am I gonna build up to this fire lookout reveal moment? So I shot a bunch of different elements as I was moving up to the fire lookout. I got the moment where I had to set down the bike. I did another talking bit to the camera that's set up, I'm almost there. I did some different B-roll shots going up to the fire lookout. And then I got reaction shots of me as well as some shots where the fire lookout was obscured in a way where you see me moving through the frame and I'm getting there, but it's not fully showing the entire thing yet. And the reason for that is you want to have a big reveal. You want to have a buildup, whether it's a buildup throughout your video or you find these moments where you can really build up to a revealing shot. You want to take those moments and really milk them and really build them out because in your edit, you're going to find that these moments are going to help craft your story and they're going to help keep your audience engaged. So I got up to the top of the fire lookout. You know, obviously I kind of hung out there for a little bit, drank some water, chilled out, but then I got a bunch of different shots up here because this was the whole reason I shot this video. Wanted to get to the fire lookout. I wanted to find what was up there. I wanted to tell the story of, you know, am I going to be able to make it? And then once I'm up there, what's there? So I shot a bunch of different B-roll. I did some talking bits that wrap up the vlog that talk about, you know, what I found and some things about it and finish the vlog there. Now, one thing that I missed and something that, you know, I know that I could have made better would be showing the trip down because I set up that this is a big mountain I'm climbing, that there's a lot of obstacles in the way. And I think a lot of my audience would be interested in seeing that downhill portion because that's like the fun part of a climb like this. And I just forgot a GoPro, I forgot a 360 camera. And because of that, I had to wrap up the video at the fire lookout. So for me, I would have extended this video a little bit longer, done a music sequence with like a 360 camera, and then showed the whole element when I was like bombing down the mountain on a mountain bike in this epic landscape. Now I could have done some of it with the drone, but it just is not the same. Like I needed to have some more elements. So I just scratched that element and I ended the video at the top of the summit. So how do you know when to end your video? Well, you need to shoot to edit. So this is a concept that I learned back in film school. It's something that you're gonna use in all of your videos because you always wanna be thinking of your final video. You don't wanna just shoot and then go back in your edit and then try to piece it together. You wanna shoot to edit. So as you're shooting, always be thinking in your head, okay, how is this gonna tie into the story? Or how is this gonna work? Is this a setup? Is this a wrap up of this section? You know, am I tying this in a nice little bow? Or do I need to add more to the story so I need to set up something else? Always be thinking through how is the story gonna be crafted? And again, this is a skill. You're gonna be in the moment and you're gonna be shooting, and then once you start thinking through the story and you have your plan, you're gonna realize like, oh, I need to capture this B-roll because that's gonna really help tell the story. So always be shooting to edit. Always be thinking through, what is the final project gonna look like? How am I gonna tie this footage together? And take a step back. Don't always be recording and doing the thing. Take a step back sometimes and just give yourself a moment to think through the footage that you shot. Pull up your camera, review the clips, go through them and be like, okay, I got this. Okay, I'm missing this element and I know I'm gonna need it in the edit. So shooting to edit is gonna help you find more success because you're gonna make sure that you get everything that you need to tell your story. I was at the top of the mountain. I realized I was sitting there, I was looking down at the trail and I was like, oh, forgot my GoPro. Forgot my 360 camera. That is what I need to finish up the story. So instead of wrapping up the story at the bottom of the trail like I was planning to originally, because I would have had this downhill adventure, I decided to just end the story at the top of the lookout because I knew I was gonna need something to wrap up the video up there on the summit. So I just did it right then and ended the video, thought through the edit in my head, realized that I'm not gonna have this whole section that I was planning to do, so I just wrapped it up. So let's talk about cinematic shooting for a minute, because personally I come from a filmmaking background. When I approach my videos, I wanna have more of a cinematic style to my B-roll. Not everyone is gonna wanna achieve the same kind of cinematic look. You might just be running around with your phone and you're happy with just grabbing some B-roll shots. You gotta remember, you don't have to have amazing B-roll, you don't have to have drone shots, you don't have to have gimbal work. That's a personal preference and that comes from a style that you're creating on your videos. There are plenty of creators out there who have mediocre, decent, B-roll that's just, shot with like a phone and their videos crush it. And that's the thing, like you really have to think through story because that's more important. Is this B-roll helping you tell your story? Or is the B-roll just there to, show off your skills as a cinematographer? Sometimes, that makes sense. And yes, you want to show off your skills, but more importantly, you want to help take your viewer along on the journey. Unless you're someone who does like specific camera review style vlogs, having the cinematic B-roll isn't always necessary. And having pointless cinematic B-roll isn't necessary. I think if your B-roll helps tell your story, you can ramp up the level of your B-roll, make it better, make it more cinematic, make it beautiful. But if it's not helping craft your story, then get rid of it. This is something that you hear about in filmmaking, and that is you can leave it on the cutting room floor. There's a lot of times where you end up pulling out B-roll shots that you think were the best in the world, but if they don't help tell your story, you're not going to end up using them. So don't get stuck on just creating beautiful looking shots. They are great to add in, and that's why I bring extra gear with me, and that's why I bring gimbals and drones, because I want some of these shots that look awesome, because when you put them in the context of a story, it really ramps up the quality. But it's not necessary. You could just shoot some quick B-roll shots with your phone, and if it helps tell your story, it's gonna be better than the person who didn't capture story-driven B-roll shots. So now after shooting everything I needed for my vlog, I then head into editing. So let's pull up Final Cut. I use Final Cut for all of my edits. You might use different editing software. You don't have to use Final Cut, but I do like it for creating YouTube content because it makes it super easy to cut. So before we get into the actual editing, let me show you how I set up my files, because file structure and organization is going to make it easier to edit. So here is my Butler Peak folder. I do all of my folders based on the date, and then I put a title. Now I have my Final Cut project. I do a specific Final Cut project for each video. I have my exports, and then I have my media. And in my media, I've separated out by all the cameras I'm using. So I have my drone, I have my full frame camera, I have my phone, I have voiceover, which is something we add and edit, and I'll get to that in a second. And then we have the ZV-1. So these are all the cameras that I used for this project. Now I'm gonna bring all these into Final Cut. And here's a pro tip. I actually have a templated Final Cut file that I just copy every time I start a new project, and it has all my titles and everything already built, so that every time I go in to make a video, everything's there ready to go, and I don't really have to rebuild different elements. So if you have things that you use video after video after video, create a templated project file, and then whenever you start a new project, take that template, copy it, bring it into your folder,
so that you always are starting at a point where you have everything built. And let me know down in the comments if you want me to cover this more specifically in a video talking about these templates. And because I made the folder structure before I even opened up Final Cut, you can see that all of those are now appearing as keywords because I brought them in as the folders. So we need to start a timeline. And like I said, I have templated timelines. So for this, we're gonna make a new timeline and we'll work off that. So as you can see, when I pull up this templated timeline, I have all these elements that I've already built. So I have my name, I have some text, lower text, player, squares, like all these elements that I use in all my videos. Now, I might not be using these in these vlogs, but this is just something I want you guys to see, that if you use different graphics and elements, create templates of this and make it really easy to do video to video to make things faster. So the first stage of my process is I go through all my A-roll, so all the parts where I'm talking on camera, and I chop these up just so they're little sequences of each of those sections.
Okay, so the goal today is to go up to Big Bear, which there's this fire lookout. So originally you could four-wheel all the way to Butler Peak and you could park down.
So I'll go through and just cut out sections that are boring. So I try to make it move faster, because the key is you don't want to bore an audience. So I'll chop out little sections and make the story move faster.
First part of this hill. So the first part. So I kind of left them because I'm riding my bike. So the first part of this. So this is going to be. I'm riding my bike. So this is going to be quite a climb. It's basically uphill the whole way.
So what I'm doing is cutting out any dead time or any parts where I repeat. So I just want to make it seamless from beginning to end and make it move. Now, obviously, you don't want to chop out every break when you're talking, but depending on the style of content you're shooting, you might want to cut out a lot of these like ums and oohs and ahs. And, I did a video all about jump cuts, hiding jump cuts. Might be something for you to check out after this video. Again, trying to give you guys as much information as possible. So I apologize if I'm giving you guys a ton of homework, but we're doing jump cuts here. So you might need to hide these later. I'll put a link in the description on how you hide jump cuts.
It's a ways out there. So this is going to be a distance, and it's a ways out there. You can see Butler Peak off in the distance. Peak off in the distance. It's a ways out there. But you can see Butler Peak off in the distance. It's a ways out there. So this is going to be quite a climb. It's basically uphill the whole way. Uphill the whole way. It's going to be a nice ride down back to the Jeep.
So after I've gone through and cut all these story beats, I could see what I have on the timeline. So there's, I have all these different sections that are me talking to camera. I have the setup at the beginning, which talks about what I'm going to encounter. I have this section here, which talks about getting to the trailhead, some anticipation. These sections, which talk about trail, different things I'm encountering as I'm going along. So this is the actual journey. Now I have this section that talks about getting to the lookout and kind of building up that anticipation. And then I have the reveal, me on the summit, and the wrap up. So when you're shooting, you're thinking through all these elements. And because I thought about them as I was shooting this video, now when you go to the edit, you can see clearly how all these elements start coming together and you actually have your whole story, crafted out just in these elements of me talking to camera. We haven't even gotten into the B-roll yet. So the next step for me is I actually start digging into music. And I use Epidemic Sound for all of my music. And what I'll do is start looking for different sounds and ideas that might encompass the story. So let's go into moods, because I think when you're looking for music, going by mood is a great way to do it. I have some elements of this epic adventure, so I really want some cinematic epic music. And you can sort by epic and then maybe dreamy. Let's do epic and hopeful. And then we just start listening to all the music. After skimming through some songs, if that mood is not really working for me, then I'm going to switch it up and try to find something else. So once you find something you like, you can use this button that's Find Similar, and it's going to show you similar tracks to the sound that you like. So So once I found different sounds that I like, I'll create a new music folder in the media, and I'll drop all of it in there, just because I want to keep everything organized. Now I'm gonna grab more tracks than I think I'm gonna use, because you might want to switch some tracks out when you're actually creating the video, but if you find some general sounds, things that feel the way that you want, then you'll start playing around with that. And I like to use music to help guide my edit. So a lot of times I'll put my music in, and that's what I use to help edit my B-roll together and then tie scenes together. So music for me is super important. So I found this kind of epic sound, and I realized that I need something before this footage of me talking. I'm gonna need a hook. That's one key element when it comes to creating vlogs, is you need a hook. So you either plan out a hook, or in this case, I'm just trying to find something that was really interesting in this video to use as my hook. Now this next track that I found has this kind of like driving feel to it. It's kind of like anticipation. It's good to build up, ramp up the energy to get into the actual meat of the video. Now the next song that I chose is going to go over all the elements when I'm actually mountain biking up to the summit. And I think just has this kind of like adventure feel to it. It's kind of mellow, but it's also got a driving beat. So music, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And it also comes down to style. These are the styles of tracks that I like using. You might have a completely different style, but you want to think, how is it going to make your audience feel when they're watching the video? Okay, so this is a great track for the reveal, because I love the build of this song, and then it gets to this point where it's like, boom, there's a moment for a reveal. Cool, so I got my music. I have these 4 tracks that I'm gonna use throughout the video, and this is gonna help drive the rest of the edits for the B-roll. So now I just cut the hook, and what I found was the shot was the reveal. So I have an epic landscape, drone pulls back to reveal the fire lookout, and then I figured use this to kind of preface what's coming. So you understand that like I get there, but I'm gonna set up, everything that goes along the journey, and there is still this idea of like what is gonna be there once I get there. So I'm revealing a little bit early, but to do that, I'm trying to hook my audience. And you can see that I'm walking up the path as I get to this hut. So there is some of that anticipation of like, well, what happens when he gets to the top? And then I use this first track, I cut it up a little bit just so I could have, 15 seconds of it versus a longer portion. Blackout screen. Okay. Go into me talking about what is about to happen. So that was a hook, draws your audience in. So you want to look for these hook moments. That was a reveal that I used as a hook. So then I go into the talking bits where I'm setting up the story. And then at the end of this,
Didn't really pack last. I got to get all my stuff ready to go. Didn't really pack last night like I should have.
So I bring in the music right as I finish up this wrap up, and I go into just some B-roll shots. So I talk about the fact that I didn't pack, so I want to show some of that, show packing of the car. This is all B-roll that I captured, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with it yet. Now I was playing around with this footage of the drive. Originally I thought, okay, I'll do a bunch of shots of me driving, but it ended up being pretty boring. So I needed to add in some history, and this is where voiceover could come into play. So because I'm doing something that has a little bit of a history, this fire lookout was built in 1931. There's a little bit of history that I need to set up to talk about what a fire lookout is. This is a great opportunity. I've set up the story. Now it's time to give some backstory on, fire huts in general. So as I'm setting this up, I have the music playing underneath down here. You can see I've added a little truck sound effect. That's a sound effect that I got just off Epidemic Sound. You can use sound effects, put them in places to just enhance the story a little bit. I set up that I'm driving 2 hours, 16 minutes. I got a shot of me, a reaction shot. Like I said, you always want to get reaction shots. And then it's just a bunch of boring driving shots. So instead of doing a bunch of boring driving shots, I brought down my music and I added this voiceover. So let's just listen to this voiceover.
The Butler Peak Fire Lookout was originally built in 1931, and fire lookouts were built so that rangers could see the 360 panoramic view and they'd be able to see the smoke coming off of where a fire started.
So I created this voiceover. I just used my Zoom H4n right here, did this, boom, made a voiceover. Now, instead of just putting this over driving footage, I wanted to find some archival footage. So I found this shot of Butler Peak in the 40s. Then I have this shot that I actually shot from the top when I was there, and I added some effects to it. So I went through, I added some aged film and a color. Originally, it was just that shot. But because I was trying to make something feel like it was old, I added some color and I aged the shot so that it looks like it's part of history. Okay, we're just playing into this whole idea of crafting your history behind this fire lookout. So these two shots with the voiceover, I used this shot of driving up the mountain to kind of get into the scene, and then I came out on the mountain. So it bookended these two historical shots, so it shows the and I used this to help pass the time because I needed to get from driving to the trailhead.
And I just got up to Big Bear, and I just met up with my parents who have a place up here, and they're actually going to drive with me to the trailhead.
So now we got into the scene where I'm talking about, what to expect and where we're going. You can see I'm transitioning time and trying to give you more information in the vlog so that it keeps your interest and keeps you watching longer. So music-wise, I used the music to kind of lay over this section. I brought it down when I'm doing the voiceover, and then I had it fade out before I got into me talking. So I let the music drift away. You don't always need music to fill everything. I like to use it and come up, back down, go up, back down. I like to use pacing in my videos. So you want to pace things out and not always be blanketing music from beginning to end. So when I finish my talk here, we get into the trailhead. So I have some B-roll of that. I cut a few shots together, and I added some music.
What to expect from this trail?
Shot of my Jeep. Then I go into the road closed sign. That sets up. I got to the trailhead. And then my bike sitting there. This was actually shot later, but I needed some footage to set up that I was about to go on this bike adventure. So you might not always use your B-roll in chronological order. If you need to just capture all these different elements, and something you capture later might actually work earlier. So in this case, I need to set up the mountain bike. So I had the shot that I captured from like 2 hours later, and it ended up working great. And I also reversed it so it had this kind of reveal on it. Normal, the shot looks like this. And I decided just to reverse it, just a personal preference, to show trail. You kind of see the trail off to the right-hand side, but I'm more focusing on the bike. And then I go into an empty shot and I go into frame. It's a great way to kind of start a scene, is start with an empty frame and then work your way into it, whether you're walking into it or other people are coming into it. But having something where it's an empty frame and then you appear into it, that's kind of like the beginning of a journey. And I actually had my mom for this section because they helped hike at the beginning, so I had my mom shoot some footage. She just shot on her iPhone. If you have people around you to grab these quick shots of like you doing something because you're vlogging and you need someone to shoot you, and say, hey, just do this horizontal for me and just stay in this one position, and then you can do what you need to do. Or just use a tripod. But if you have people around, you can ask them to shoot for you. And these kind of shots are more important than like sexy B-roll, because some of these shots where it's just a simple you coming into frame has more emphasis in your story rather than just like beautiful shot of landscape.
All right,
so I've set up the trail, and now I need to start talking about, what's going on. So I added another vlog element here, kind of set up what's going on. And if you have B-roll that goes over when you're talking about your footage, you can include that. And so you could use B-roll to go over shots to help show what you're talking about. So that's why you want to grab B-roll of things that you're talking about and then extra B-roll as well.
See, but it's a ways out there.
So more shots of me riding, and then some of the scene. And because I'm on a mountain bike, I want to make sure I'm capturing things in motion. And this is why I wanted to bring along a gimbal. I have, shots moving forward, to the side. You can see I'm getting a range of different shots. I have a shot of me riding again. So I'm just setting up the ride, and then we get into this next section where I talk about, some of the issues that are coming up on the trail.
I've just been climbing and climbing, getting some views of the valley where I started way out there in the distance. But this trail's interesting. It's like a mix of sand and rock, and
that's just a simple shot that I got on my iPhone. I was talking about sand and rock, so I grabbed a shot. I didn't know if I'd use it. Sure enough, I mean, it shows what I'm talking about, and it's not even that good of a shot, but it is what it is.
a bunch of areas are washed out, so you have to carry your bike here and there.
So that's footage I captured from earlier in the day. I just got a tripod shot. I walked through the frame with my bike. I got some shots of the washout. And I didn't know if I was going to make a whole section on the washout, but I ended up just using it as visuals over, this part where I'm talking about it. Just helps move the story along. I didn't need to put all this emphasis on this washout. I have a bunch of shots from it, but looking at it, it just made more sense just to pop this in, get some B-roll over me talking, keep the story moving forward.
Man, it is a climb. There's not a whole lot of shade, so it's just non-stop sun just beating down on you the whole way up. I think I'm about halfway.
I've set up a bunch of different elements. I've showed the trail. I did it in this way where you were closer with me at the beginning, like shots that were on the trail. So because I have variety of shots that I've captured, I figured this is a great moment to reveal more of the scene. So this kind of start close with me and then reveal out. And that's why I decided to do a drone section. You get to see the surrounding land. It sets up what the trail looks like, bigger shots of it, and then these super extreme wide shots of me in this vast landscape. So I didn't drag on too much of this footage, but I really wanted to show, I am out in the middle of nowhere. And so I wanted to have this emphasis around, the vast landscape. So I had to get some of these drone shots. And these drone shots were hard to get because I was by myself. So I basically had to get the drone in these different positions and, fly and get shots of myself. Now, you don't want to drag on too much in your edit. So I've showed the trail, I've showed some of the challenges that come up on the trail. I've milked that. I've got enough of that in the edit. I don't want to do more and more B-roll sections of this. It'll get boring. I want to keep the story moving. So the next section is we need to get to something. And this is where I turn the corner. It's set up that I see the peak in the distance. A quick little B-roll section of some footage that shows this last moment. I put my bike down and I have this moment where I say I'm almost there.
All right, just made it to the spot where I need to drop my bike off. The last little bit is just this walk up the trail, the fire hut just above.
And because this is the final climax of the video, I'm gonna use music under the whole thing, and I'm gonna actually find the moment where I want the music to hit. That's the moment I want to use for the reveal. So I have all this buildup, and I basically laid it out and changed the volume. So we started out with full volume because it's some B-roll, kind of showing the surrounding. We're almost there. There's Butler Peak. I bring down the music. I talk for a minute.
All right, just made it to the spot where
I show that it's in the distance out of focus. And then I bring the music back up for another little B-roll section. But this is more of a specific move the story forward B-roll. So I show the trail, I show my feet, I show my reaction. Again, you want variety of shots. I show the trail again, but this time I pan up to reveal where we're going. So you're getting more information with each shot, and it's moving the story towards that moment where we're gonna actually get the reveal. So then I grab the shot using a drone of me walking up the staircase. The music starts getting a little bit more intense. I have this surrounding shot that's from the summit. It kind of shows what the view is, but at the same time, it's obscured in a way. And I like that. So it keeps you wanting more. And then I show POV shot going up the stairs. And you can see I'm building to the big reveal. I'm putting all these shots together that's moving you forward, and you're wanting more and you want to see what happens. So if you have these moments where it comes to the big reveal, make sure you capture enough footage to get all these moments. I sat here and shot a ton of footage to be able to craft this element of the story. You might think the reveal's coming. but I do a POV again looking down. Again, obscuring the view. And I'm capturing all these different elements because I know in the edit, I'm gonna wanna put all these pieces together to do this big reveal. This shot right here, this is the money shot. This is the most important shot of the film. It reveals the fire lookout on top of the peak. I do this crazy circling shot all around the lookout. So a couple things, I made sure I had enough drone battery that I was gonna have it up there because that was something I was anticipating. And I've shot it in a few different ways to really show this reveal. This is the purpose of doing this vlog, was getting to this fire lookout. And then so the last section, I have these talking bits where I'm, talking about what it's like up there, what I'm finding, and some just different information for this video. And I did this all over music because this is the finale. This is the grand finale. So I have the music go up and down, and you can hear that it let the music drop down and have the music go lower when I'm talking, bring it up to ramp up the intensity when I show the shots of the fire lookout. Again, I wanted to grab shots of myself, so I have a shot like this, which is a drone shot of just me on the lookout. More shots of my reaction as I'm finding this. You just want to capture a lot of footage, and I ended up using only a portion of the shots that I used, but all of it does come into play, and I use snippets of everything. Oh, look who just woke up. Someone wants to say hi. So, I've got a little editing assistant. Now what's up? You want to edit? Do you like the microphone? Oh. Someone wants to eat it. Does that feel good? Okay, someone has taken my microphone, so I'm gonna switch cameras now.
So after I have the video cut, I have the music laid, then I go through and do my color grading and kind of clean up any little edits that look out of place. Now from there, I'll build out a title and thumbnail, things that I think will match the story and something that's gonna be engaging. And if you guys wanna learn more about my YouTube upload process, let me know down in the comments. I'll make a video about that. The biggest takeaway that I want you guys to get from this video is that you want to plan and think through story. I know you hear this again and again, story is most important, but it really is. Like, story is gonna help make you different than every other YouTube creator on the platform. Even for a very simple vlog, are the ones that are gonna stand out from all the mess that is on YouTube. There's just so many videos being produced, and there are so many creators out there who just think that you can hit record and make good videos and people will watch them. It comes from planning, it comes from storytelling, and it comes from practice. So using this structure, playing around with the different story elements, and just doing it over and over and over. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this vlog isn't the best vlog in the world. However, I really approached it as if I wanted to make the best vlog in the world. And you'll just do this time and time again, you'll get better at your craft, you'll create better stories, and then you'll build your audience because people will be interested in the videos that you are creating. All right, guys, in the description, I put a ton of resources that bounce off of all the different things we talked about in this video. If you want to go more in depth in any of those topics, make sure you head down in the description. And I highly suggest you check out this video right here, which is my first guide on how to vlog. It's a great follow-up video to this because it's going to talk even more about some different ideas and different things that you should think about before you press record. All right, guys, I'll see you over there.